I got no shoes, 'cause I'm barefoot in the sand. And it's Breakfast with Bob.
Honcho Man! Welcome everybody to day 5. Breakfast with Bob. We're brought to you by HOKA, One, Polar, Halo, Neuroscience, Velofix, Today's Plan, Normatec, Four Seasons Resort, Hualalai, Triathlete Magazine, and we're beautiful. Huggo's on the rocks. Our guest, he's a first-time participant in Breakfast with Bob, Mr. Talbot Cox. How about a round of applause for Talbot? You've watched his videos. You've seen the Tim and Rinny and Izzy station. You've got it all. How you doing, Talbot?
Oh, doing great. Couldn't be better.
I love the fact. So Talbot sends a note the other day when I invited him on the show. He's trying to be nice. He says, oh, my God, I got invited to go on Bob's show. I've been watching him since I was 9 years old. That doesn't make me feel too old. Thanks for that. That's great. So how you doing? Everything good?
Oh, couldn't be better, man.
How crazy are you? How many different YouTube channels you got going?
You know, first I just want to start, basically, when I was like 9 years old, I was coached by Dr. Amanda Stevens. I'm sure you remember Amanda Stevens.
I do. Great swimmer.
Used to race here a lot, and just want to give a little shout out to her. But that's when I started watching your show, and I just became addicted to it. And every year I was just like, one day I'm going to be in Kona. One day I'm going to watch this race. And it's just such a pleasure to be on your show, so I wanted to thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome, Talbot. I love what you're bringing to the sport. The cool thing is to capture the athletes' personalities. For people at home to look at our athletes as not just numbers and wattage and things like that, but to know what their backstory is and how special they all. Every one of our athletes, most of them started out as age groupers.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they find that they have an ability to do something better than anybody else on the planet. And being able to capture that and bring them to life is really special.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun. I think a lot of time when a bunch of the, I guess we would say, age group or amateur athletes would see them, they're kind of in their professional environment or about to race, and so they're not like probably the most friendly or at their peak or their fun and stuff. And so I try to just bring them to life with camera, and then also just kind of give the pros a voice, because it's they kind of get buried in all their training, and then anytime you do see them out, it's at some type of press event or it's at some type of sponsor gathering. And so we try to just take the behind the scenes of them and bring them to life, and basically just put it on a YouTube channel and make it to where people can really interact and see their inside out.
And the world has changed so much, where it used to be if you want to do something like this, you've got to buy time on television, right, and hire a production crew to film it, and it's just too prohibitive for anything to get done. But in this day and age, with a couple of cameras and with a relationship with somebody, all of a sudden you're making television.
That's totally true. Yeah, anyone can pick up a camera and pretty much script how they do. I'm pretty much a one-man show as far as outside of Kona. I've brought a team of guys here to Kona to help me out. But yeah, basically you could do all that, edit all on Final Cut, and just have a lot of fun and then bring out their life. So
talk a little bit about Gwen and Lionel and just what have you learned about them while you've been filming?
Most definitely. I think that what's something pretty interesting that I was telling actually Gwen's husband, Pat, is Gwen and Lionel and Rinny are so similar in their headspace. It's so strange to see the way that they work, that when it's time for them they're all fun and games, play with Izzy, play with Stanley, and Lionel with his dog Chewy. But they're all fun and games, but when it's time for them to go to work and they get into that mental mindset, it's truly incredible to capture. The fact that you can show up to one of Siri Lindley's run workouts with Mirinda Carfrae, it's like you're just kind of to see her work that hard, and also Lionel, like when he's on the trainer pushing, and Gwen when she's running around that Nike campus. It's truly incredible to watch them just completely flip the switch and go to that deep, deep, dark place. And that's something that I really try to capture, and I try to mix music with it so people can visually see it. But it's something that it's been mind-boggling. So I say if I ever came back in my second life, I would know what it takes to be a professional triathlete or a professional athlete after watching them do it so many times.
Well, and it's years ago we used to do a series, training day features, right, where we go back and we'd hang out with Crowe for a day, a swim, bike, run, and you really got a sense of, I mean, Rinny said it best in our film. She goes, people ask me what my hobby is. Hobby? I'm swimming, biking, running, doing social media. If I can do nothing, I do nothing, right? Because it's so consuming. Their whole day is consuming. It makes you realize how difficult this sport is. It's not like Gwen is a runner and she's doing weights and things like that now, but swim, bike, run, social media, press opportunity, all that stuff. Do you come away wondering how they get it all in?
Oh, most definitely. And I think a lot of it at times is very, very overwhelming for them. Actually, this year we had the pleasure of staying right down the road in the Sugar Shack with Tim and Rennie. We're kind of like in our separate headquarters in the back. And I've got to visually watch Rennie with all of her press obligations and every sponsor obligations, and then also attempt to run a social media account and kind of just all this. And I'm just like, and you have a race on Saturday. I'm overwhelmed and stressed right now, and I couldn't even imagine trying to live up to her expectations of racing in a world championship. Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming. And then not only all of that, but being the months leading up to it, being the top caliber athlete in almost every division. It's incredible to watch.
So when you first started this, did you have a background in videography? What was your background?
You know, I dabbled with videos, but I was a software developer, and I moved out to Boulder. And then I started kind of building like coffee shop websites, I guess you'd say, for professional athletes. And I would hire like photographers to go essentially get the photos, and they were never getting the ones I wanted. And I was just like, well, I better make myself useful and get my own camera. So I just started shooting, and that was about 3 years ago. And then things have kind of just trickled down and come into effect, and I've just kind of found my niche, and I love it so much.
And Gwen just ran Chicago Marathon and took 9th place, and making a very difficult transition from being the gold medalist in triathlon to try to move into a really deep women's marathon field and trying to make the U.S. team. And you're capturing sort of the highs and lows of all that. Are there times where she'll say, you need to go away right now?
Most definitely. And I think that not only with Gwen, but with the other athletes as well. Or I guess everyone except Lionel.
He never says a thing.
Yeah, never says a thing. You know, it's sometimes that they are just so overwhelmed, but that's kind of my job as well, is I can visually usually sense them. So when Gwen will cross the finish line, and I can kind of just read her body language if she's wanting to do an interview or not, and usually I'll just back up, and I'm like, I know I'll get that audio bit later. Or kind of like with Rennie as well, like and with Tim, it's kind of like that's kind of my job, is to understand the boundary of when I need to step in, or maybe I'll go over there to their house to shoot for a few days,
right.
and I can tell like she's probably not one to do a lot of audio, so maybe this video will not be as heavy on the audio, and it will be more like music driven and just show training, because that's kind of my whole goal, is to really sense but have that relationship and connection with them, so I don't overstep my boundaries with them as well.
Step number 1 is shooting.
Yeah.
The hardest part to me is the amount. You shoot a couple of hours of video, now you got to edit something to 45 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. That process, people don't understand how long that takes. And that's when I look at the volume of stuff you're doing, because I'm into volume. We do a lot of chatting here, but you're doing stuff that has to be in. You're probably 3-4 in the morning. You're working on this stuff.
Yeah, most definitely. Last year I was pretty much almost a one-man show, and then finally I had a friend of mine that lived on Oahu, and I flew him over, and I was like, you got to help. I'm so overwhelmed. I was pretty much shooting from 6 a.m., and then by the time I was finishing editing, it was like 2 or 3 a.m., getting back up at 6 a.m. again. This year we've been a whole lot more time structured on the schedule, and been able to push content. But yeah, most definitely. A lot of people look at me as like a photographer, but I wouldn't even call myself a photographer. I call myself more of a content creator. You look at incredible photographers like Corrupt Vision or
right.
Donald Morale or people like that, and they have so much art and like framing and all that. And basically my goal is to just capture the athletes and the raw emotion and the behind the scenes, and not have it be as professional and commercial, make it more raw in the moment. So most definitely.
Have you been surprised at the reception?
I have. You know, people love it. And then not only that, but the athletes have been so supportive as well. I mean, athletes like Lindsay Corbin and Meredith Kessler and so many athletes have like reached out to me and thanked me. And it's made me feel, and the encouragement that I get from everyone else on that they love it. They love to see the behind the scenes. Has been so helpful for me to continue to keep pushing and making it happen. So most
love
definitely.
It. Keep doing what you're doing.
I appreciate
we love
it. Appreciate it.
Storytelling it's an art. And you're creating art.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
How about a round of applause for Talbot Cox? Poncho Man, speaking of art.
No shoes, and I'm barefoot in the sand. Wow. And it's breakfast with Bob. Choo-hoo.